All right, welcome back, guys. We're going to do a demo really quick here. I have a model here from Kylie. So can everyone see the screens? This one's off. Let me turn this one back on. All right, some of you might have done this already. Kylie went through and she already, waiting for this other screen to turn on here, she already assigned some base materials to her chair here, okay? That's totally fine. Every now and then that could be a pain in the butt if you have lots of textures or something. You have to have a texture file plugin manager because we're going to transfer this to studio lighting, okay? So this is Kylie's model right now. What I want to do is that when I first sat down with Kylie, she had this all open and it wasn't grouped, okay? That was a negative because that means if I were to grab that, once I import it into studio lighting, I'm going to have parts all over the place. So I did a demo and talked about cleaning up your file and grouping it together so it's ready to transport. So all I did real quick when I sat down at her station, she still needs to label this, okay? But I just selected everything and grouped it. That way when I touch it in the key hierarchy selection, it's one selection. And there's a reason why I want to do that, okay? Because now when I import it in to Studio Light, it's just ready to go. Now there's sort of two options I could do. I could import Studio Lighting into this set, okay, which has worked before and sometimes there's been problems with that. Or I can export this model down to the desktop and then import it into Studio Lighting. So I'm going to go ahead and do the second method and just show you how I would do that. I have this model completely selected here. I'm going to go down to File and I'm going to go down to Export Selection right here. And I'm going to export this to my desktop, but I'm going to do it as an underscore. And there's a reason why I'm going to do it as just an underscore. Because if I were to do it as my favorite rocket chair render 1, it's going to bring up that whole entire listing in the outliner, which could be a little mind-numbing. It's so long. So if I do it as an underscore right now and bring it in, I'll only have that little dash on the outliner when I pull it up in Studio Lighting. So I'm going to go ahead and export right now to my desktop. It's going to say that underscore exists. Do you want to replace it? I'm going to say yes. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. I already gave you guys Studio Lighting. I'm going to pull this up and I'm going to drop it. Open up Studio Lighting in Maya. Okay. And there it is. When it opens up, it has this little helix here. Delete it. And it has this sphere. Delete it. You don't need those two. They just happen to be in there. That was just a test demo to see how Chrome was working. Okay. Now that that's done, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go to File. Okay. I'm going to go to Import. I'm going to go to my desktop and I'm going to grab that underscore, which is right here. I'm going to hit Import. Now this will happen where you import it and you're like, oh my God, it didn't work. It's broken. It's not there. It is there. Look, you got to zoom out, press 4 on your keyboard, go to see-through mode. You see that? It's there. It's just huge right now. So what I have to do is click my hierarchy selection, grab the whole entire object, and I need to scale it down. And this happens quite a bit where we're working in another world space, okay, and we might have an object that's really huge or small or whatever. We have to scale it down to fit the new world that we have in. So what I'm going to do right now, looking at it in this mode, I'm just going to scale it down to about so, okay, and I'm just going to look at it. Look, I'm going to bring it over. I'm going to drop it right in front here. Then I'm going to hit F, which is Frame All View. Then I'm going to hit 5 again and look at my shaded view. Do you see what I just did? So I just brought Kylie's model in here. I'm going to get it pretty close to the center right here. I made that a little small, so I might enlarge it a little bit more, like this. And I'm going to raise it up. Now I'm looking at the back view. Yes, you can render multiple views. If you decide to render like a side view, a front view, a top view, and then give me your whole 3/4 view to sell your product here, think of this as a toy design in essence, that's totally fine. You can do that. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to spin this guy around, okay, and I'm just going to get it locked in to an angle, excuse me, that I like. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. Let's say I want to render it at about this angle right here. Okay. Turn a little bit, might bring that a little bit more forward. I like to look at it from a side view. See, I could still even make this a little bit larger. The only thing about making it too large is this, is that you'll notice this is like a photo studio in here. You see that's all ready to go for you. I can get the black of the paper right there. So if I don't want that, I need to maybe make the object a little bit smaller. That way I can zoom in. You see, now I'm not getting the black of the paper there anymore. Okay, so there, I'm zoomed in on the object, And I'm going to go ahead, and here's a couple things to watch really quick. Number one, make sure it's not sticking into the ground like that, because I won't be able to look at the back fin. You see that round part? That's in the ground. That's not going to look good. I want to make sure the whole model is just slightly above the ground or just barely touching the ground. Okay? And again, go for a 3/4 shot. Those tend to be a little bit more interesting. Okay? Now I'm going to pull up the outliner to show you what the outliner looks like. So when I hit that outliner tab right now and I come over here and I look at the group and I open that, that's the grouping that I imported in. And then look at the group. Everything's got an underscore in front of it. Do you see that? So if I had saved that as my rocket chair, it would be saying my rocket chair and then have that underscore every time on every single piece. And that can be a little mind-numbing, so I don't want to do that. That's why I exported it as a separate little underscore. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do right now is, the benefit of me having that in here is now I can select parts on this and I can assign materials to that, and I can keep rendering inside Studio Lighting. Okay, so real quick, I know Studio Lighting had a really cool Chrome feature that was already in here, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up my Hypershade here. So Window, Rendering Editor, Hypershade, and I'm going to grab this little guy right here, okay? And I want to assign that to a couple of the fins here, because when I was working with Kylie earlier, we didn't get to do that. So I'm going to select these fins here, here, and here. And I'm going to come over, go right over the My Material Chrome and hit Assign Material to Selection right there. And just for the fun of it, I might do it to these as well. So I thought those might look really cool. Sorry, Kylie. I'm not trying to change your project. I just was curious to see what these would look like. Okay, there. So I've done that. Now I'm going to close that window, come back up here. Now let's talk a little bit about my render settings. Okay. That Render Globals button, which is right here, if I click that open, it has my render settings in there. Some of the most common settings that are really important to us are going to be the size at which we are rendering. Okay. Now what's weird is that I can't see a window or a frame. Maya has the ability to give me a window or frame to show me what my render is going to look like before I render it. So let me show you how to do that really quick. I just come over here in this view mode. I go to view and I scroll right down here. I'm going to go to camera settings. I'm going to go to resolution gate. Okay, right there. Do you see that? So when I select that resolution gate, it shows me with that green gate, that's currently what's going to render on my screen, is what's inside that green gate. So again, to get there, it's really easy. In your OpenGL view, you just go to View, Camera Settings, okay, and then scroll right down here to Resolution Gate, and it's there for you. Okay, so now watch what happens if I come back to my render settings. I'm going to change the size of my paper that it's rendering on. Okay, so under Common right here, if I scroll down a little bit, look at image size, preset 640 by 480. I'm going to select this right now, and I'm going to move this right down here and put it on HD 720. See what happened? That window changed. Not only did it change, but it also adjusted the render settings, where now I'm rendering in an HD format, which is 720. Before it was 640 by 480. That's not that big of a render size. That's a common render size for doing test renders really quick. I like to do an HD by 720 sometimes just to figure out how it's going to look, and I also like that because that is closer to my 11 by 17 format that I'm going to present my work at. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, now that I have that ready to go, if I look at this, you'll notice my image is being crimped right here on the top. I have a tangency. So I'm going to adjust it, pull this down a little bit like so. Okay, get my image locked in. Now I know exactly how it's going to render, what I'm going to see. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to hit the render button, which is the film gate right here on the top. And when I hit that, it's going to open up this render. Okay, now it's going to take a couple minutes to do this. Okay, usually does, because first the computer is going to go through and it's going to calculate the colors, and then it's going to start to calculate the shadows, and then at the very end it'll go through again. It'll start to calculate highlight passes, refractions, and other little details. Okay, my computer's a little bit more beefed up because, you know, it's an Instructor station, so I have a couple little things on here that make it render a little bit faster. Actually, to get technical, I have an extra graphics card, so part of the graphics card is handling part of the rendering. Yeah, I know it's crazy, but they can actually do that where if you beef up the graphics cards, it speeds up part of the rendering process. And so when I was looking at ordering a couple of new machines that were very powerful that had new specs on them, it's crazy now. You can get dual graphics card. They have this extra rendering software on, or I mean, ability to render on the graphics card, so it's not killing the machine. Okay. So now if you look at how this is done, and the computer is going from left to right now, and it's finalizing part of the render for me. Okay. Now, I'm giving you the option. I've had students that want to do this before in the past. They pulled their render into Photoshop, and they want to delete out the gray background. If you want to do that, that's totally fine. You just have to go in and take the wand tool and it takes about 20 to 30 minutes, and the selection tools, and you go out. You have to go through and basically delete the background just to get the image itself separate. That's if you want to use one of those backdrops I put on there. Okay, so the backdrops I put on in Photoshop. So if I open up Photoshop, let's let that render real quick here. I open up Photoshop right here. So do you see these backgrounds? If I just want to use that background right there, that's totally fine. I have to then select the gray around the render and take it out in Photoshop, and then I could put just the image there. That's another 20-30 minutes of work, but it can make your project look better in presentation. If that's what you don't want to do, okay, you could come over here and turn this off and just drop your render right in the middle. That's also acceptable as well. Okay, so let's come back here and take a look. So now it's done. Okay, there, everything's rendered. I put the chrome on it. I got the shiny red. Looks fantastic, doesn't it? Okay, good job, Kylie, right? So now what I need to do is I need to save that image. Okay, so I'm going to go under File here. This is only in the render view, not in this view of my main application that's open, under the File render view. If I go under File right now and I go to Save Image, it's going to ask me where I want to save it. I'm going to go to Desktop. I had a folder on there called Render. I'm going to open that up. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save it as as a TIFF. Hit Save. I'm going to come back here, File, Save Image. This time I'm going to save it as a PSD. Okay, I'm going to save it as 2 in the same folder. Okay, and hit, that's weird. Oh no, it's showing me the other PSD, which is Radio Flyer. Hit 2, there it is, it's saved. Okay. Now, if I want to, I can keep this image in here to compare it against another render. Let me show you what I mean. In my render view mode, I have a couple little options up here. Okay. If I select this green option and hold my cursor over it, it says Keep Image. If I hit that, I've now just stored that image into Maya's memory, which is great. Because now what I can do is if I close this, and I might be like, you know, what if I want to rotate my chair at a little bit more of an angle? And then what if I want to look down on it a little bit more? Or maybe I want something more like that. Okay, so now I'm going to come in and render this. Bear with me for a minute. So after I have this rendered, if I hit the Keep Image button again, I can compare the two renders against each other. And I could still save either one that I want. Maya's remembering what I have. I do this all the time because keeping that image, I can make little adjustments on lights. I might be changing chrome. I might be changing the red. Whatever it might be that I might be changing, I want to be able to look at the previous image and I could still save it. So sometimes rotating an image, or maybe you decide to rotate it from a side view, a back view, and then you're going to select and copy out those views and paste it on the presentation page. That's up to you. Okay. So give me 1 second. Let's let this finish for just a minute here. Almost done. Well, that's rendering real quick. I'm going to go ahead and show you. Let me minimize this folder. Actually, it doesn't want to let me get to the desktop. That's fine. Actually, let me go to Photoshop here. And in Photoshop, I was able to grab it. So here's the renders I threw in there. So watch, I'm going to grab the PSD one now, and I'm going to drag it. Uh-oh. It's not letting me. It's seizing up. It's like, I'm not going to let you do two things at once. I'm not a Mac. I'm a PC. All right, I know. Let me see if I can get that. If I can drag this. It won't even let me. There it goes. Now it finished the render. Okay. So look at that. I just dragged her render and I dropped it in the side there. You see that? And that was actually an accident. I was meaning to drag it on the icon and just dragged the render and dropped it. Look at that. It fits in there pretty good. Okay. You're like, wow, that looks pretty cool when it's all with the render and the presentation page. But now I can, if I move her render a little bit, like that, that's it. Now, let's say I got the render in here and there's not enough gray background on the side here. What would I do? I'd go back into my render in the studio, right? I'd scale the object down and maybe pull back a little bit and render it, and then bring it back in, okay, with more gray. Does that make sense? So let's say I wanted more gray on the back there. I'd go back into Maya. Okay, so actually let's say, and you know what? I don't want the logo overlapping right there. I actually left that stuff for you to adjust. So like that logo, you can go to transformation right now, and I could scale that down. I wouldn't make it any larger though, and I might put it right there, and you might be like, that's fine, but when I position this, I have this total open space on the right there, right? I don't want that. So let's go back to Photoshop real quick. Excuse me, Studio Lighting. So look, let me come back in here, and let's open up Maya. Okay. So real quick, let's go back to this one. This render finished right here. Do you see this? I'm going to hit the green button and hit keep. So now look at the two differences. 1, 2. Do you see that? That's pretty cool that Maya does that for me. Does everyone follow with me? You can hit that green button and save your renders. Look, there's the first one, there's the second one. I can decide if there's a difference there that I like between those two. If I like that one, I can go back under File and save it again as a PSD. Okay, all right. I'm going to close this right now. So what I noticed is that I want more gray on the sides, right? So I have two options to get more gray. 1, I can truck out a little bit more, or 2, I can scale the object down. It's up to you. So let's say that I decide to scale her object down a little bit more. Okay, and I'm going to drop it sort of right here in the middle. Now I have a lot more gray on the sides. All right. This time, I might render it at a little higher resolution. If I come back to HD 720, that fit pretty good, but just to be safe, so when I print it, it's nice and crisp and crystal clean, I like to come back in here. I'm going to go to HD 1080, which is double that. Okay, I could even adjust, look down here under resolution. See the 72 right there? That's your dots per inch. They call it pixels per inch. Same thing, the DPI setting. So if I were to render that, most of you don't know how DPI works if you haven't had a Photoshop class, but your cell phone right here takes photos at a high 72 DPI rate, right? Not at 300 DPI. A really good expensive camera will take them at 300 DPI. Okay, so what I can do right now is I can re-render this. Let's go ahead and render that real quick. So look at the difference now when I hit render. See how much larger my screen is? I'm rendering that at a much larger size, which means it's going to take a little bit more time. Okay, that's fine, but now I scale down the object. I have more gray on the back, on the sides, and that's going to allow me to get that object inside my presentation page, and it's going to be a lot more effective. Okay, if I wanted to go through and separate that entire image from, now here's the thing that sucks, is that I'll try to get this fixed for Thursday because Tony's coming in my next class. Studio Lighting, for some reason, when we render in Studio Lighting, we can save it and the background doesn't get attached. I don't know why it happens, but it does. So the background isn't there, and then it looks absolutely fantastic. Okay. However, in Studio Lighting, I would have to manually separate it out, which, you know, if you take the selection tool and you go around and the magic wand, you can get rid of that gray background, like I said, in about 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. Okay, and so you have just your model there looking fantastic. Okay, so look at it, still rendering. Why? Because I doubled it from HD 720 to HD 1080. And as soon as it's done, But now I have a lot more gray on the side, so I can get it to fit right in my presentation page. Okay? So any of you out there that ever had any interest in working for toy design, product design, prop design, so product design is coming up for ideas for any type of product that consumers would buy. Blenders, backpacks, shoes, iPhones, phone cases, you name it. All that stuff is designed by product designers. That's why software like this is of massive importance, because there's so much that you can do with it. And this is just scratching the surface of rendering, folks. Okay, so if you go look at the digital tutors link that we have for this class, you could go up there and there's like 10 videos on rendering techniques. I have some other ones on doing realistic trees and all this other kind of craziness. It's endless. All right, let's just let this finish. Sorry it's taking a little bit of time, but that's fine. And the great thing about it being a little bit larger is I also get some nice little details in the render and in the resolution, which is fantastic. Okay, so it's almost done. But I just want to jump in that thing and fly it around. All right, almost there. And you can see by the pixelation, see how it's pixelated along that edge right there? That's still rendering right now, and so this side is... Now, there is something I can show you later. This is called an OpenGL view render. It means it's rendering in front of me open. I can also send the render through Maya as a separate task and let it render itself. And then it'll actually render faster because it's not using the computer's memory, excuse me, to render in the OpenGL view. Okay, so it's almost done. Bear with me for a second, and then we'll save it, and we'll copy and paste that and put it in the presentation, and then that's it. Then Maddie would. We'll talk about one other thing then at the very end there. Okay, so give me 1 second. Some of you, my other class is dying, itching to get in here in a minute, so I would probably save your files right now and get ready, and then just let me finish this demo. We just have a couple minutes left. And I can't pause the recorder right now because the machine's rendering. There it is, it's finished. So real quick, File, Save Image, go back into Render. I'm going to save it as 2PSD. I'm going to hit Save, hit Replace, yes. There it is, it saved it. Okay, now don't forget, now I imported that model into Studio Lighting, right? I need to save it, but not as Studio Lighting. Don't save over your master file. So I'm going to come in here, Save Scene As. I'm going to go to my desktop. I have that folder that I created just for this demo called Render. I'm going to call this Studio Render, and then I'll call it Rocket Chair. Like that. Okay, boom. And if I hit save right now, that file's saved. Now let's just look at what happened here. If I come over here and I go back down and I open this up, and if I open up the PSD right now, and if I drop this into Photoshop here, okay, hold on a minute, didn't do it. Let's do it again. There it is. Okay, select all, copy, and go back to my main scene right here. I'm going to delete the one I put in there. I'm going to paste in the new one. Now, it pastes in a little bit smaller, which is fine. I just have to transform it. All the detail will be there because I rendered it in at a high res. But now I have much more gray on the back. And so it's overlapping a little bit there. I just have to grab that, drop it under this top folder, this top grouping right here. Okay? That's it. Now I have that. Now, the cool thing, since I rendered it a little bit smaller, is see I can move it around just a little bit more. So if let's say I want to move it up, now I have a little bit more room to transform it now because I have more gray on the side. See that? So now I can sort of get it in position like this. Just like that. It's sort of a perfect presentation right there. Okay? Now I can leave it in here. Now, here's the thing. This isn't my Photoshop class. You want to save this file right now as a working file. There's a difference. So now we're in Photoshop, not in Maya, right? So if I come over here in my preferences, excuse me, under my save options, I want to save this. I'm going to save it right now as Radio Flyer. I'm going to put the word working there. Save. That means that's the working file that has all my layers inside it. That's huge. That's really key. Now, if I was going to go to print this, I don't want to print off of the working file because I have all those layers and it's a huge file. So what I can do now is I can come over here and go File, Save As, and then I'm going to drop this down to JPEG. And what that's going to do in that save mode is it's going to flatten this whole image for me. I'm going to hit OK. So let me show you the difference there. There's a huge difference when I go to print right now. Okay. That's funny. Maybe it didn't do it. Hold on. Let me double check something. Okay. File, Save As, and oh, I saved it in the wrong. So let me go to desktop here. Actually, hold on a minute. I'll show you where it's saved. I put it in this right here. So if I come over here and go to Radio Flyer, look, here's the JPEG. Let me show you the difference. If I just hold over this file right now is only 3.27 megabytes. Okay? That's easy to send to a printer. The master file, the working file with all the layers, is 334 megabytes. Huge difference. If I send this file right here, the working file in Photoshop, with all the layers to the printer, it's going to take 20 to 30 minutes for that file to print. Why? It's 334 megabytes in size. If I send the JPEG is only 3.27 megabytes. It's going to take 20 seconds to process. Don't forget that. Everyone screws that up. Don't be one of those students that screw it up and hog up the printer. Okay, now if I double click this, look at that. There's your file all ready to go. That's ready to print. Okay, and then that's what you're going to turn in next Tuesday. I'll answer more questions on rendering. You're free to go, and I'll see you next class. Okay, bye.